On my very first property tour, I had no idea what to look for, but I bought it anyways because I wanted to get started in real estate investing as soon as possible. Big mistake. I lost over $30,000 on that very first property. And I learned from that experience that there are a couple key things to look out for on a property home walkthrough to spot a problem property from a great one. And spotting these key red flags is just the tip of the iceberg in real estate investing. You also have to use the right strategy, make sure that the property cash flows, and bring in high quality tenants. But just so you're not too overwhelmed, let's just focus on getting the property tour correct for now. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First, let's go over the 3 items that you should bring to the home walkthrough. The first item is very simple, is your phone. You want to use your phone to take pictures and as many videos as possible. In fact, I recommend getting a 3-minute video of the whole house where you walk through the whole entire interior of the house so that you can show that to your contractors for when you want to do renovations, and you can use that to advertise the space when you bring in tenants. The second thing you're going to want to bring is a measuring tape, or they have these laser pointer measuring tapes that are pretty cool, but those usually cost like over $100. So usually you can just use measuring tape that you get at Home Depot, or there's a measuring app on the phone. For the iPhone, for example, the app is just called Measure, and you can use that to point at one end of the house and then measure how far it is to the other end of the house. Now, it's not 100% accurate. That's why I highly recommend using a measuring tape, but it can come in handy if you forgot to bring your measuring tape. The measuring is super important because when you want to make renovations on the house, the contractors really need to know the dimensions of the room that you're going to be making those renovations in. Now, the third thing you want to bring is a phone charger. And I'll go over in a bit why you should bring a phone charger. It sounds really weird, but you want to bring in a phone charger that plugs into your phone and connects to a wall outlet. Now, there are 5 key red flags to watch out for on a home tour. And these are things you really want to avoid. So if a property has these, either get the seller to pay for the repair or you just walk away from the deal. It's always okay to walk away from a deal. In fact, a lot of times when you're walking away, the seller comes chasing after you and offers you a pretty good discount. So the very first red flag to watch out for is water damage. Now, water damage can be bad because it damages the interior of the house, which is made out of wood. And when wood gets wet, it can also grow mold, which further damages the integrity of that wood, which eventually could lead to the house rotting out on the inside, which you definitely don't want because that'll cost you a lot of money. So certain signs of water damage include a musty odor, if you see visible signs of mold, if you see bubbling. I'll go ahead and put a couple pictures up here for examples that actually happened at my property, where here's the mold and there's the water damage that you can see. The water's bubbling out from the ceiling. Now, water damage typically means there's a leak going on. The leak could be coming from the bathroom pipes, for example, or it could be coming from the roof because the roof is not in good integrity and is letting water in. The way to tell the difference is if you're on the top floor of the house, like let's say you're in the attic, for instance, and you see water on the ceiling of the attic, then that means it's probably a roof leak. Now, if it's a 2-story house and you're on the first floor and you see the water damage on the first floor ceiling, then that means it's most likely due to pipes that are bursting in the bathroom upstairs. And so you would need to have a plumber go in and check out those pipes. Now, the second red flag to watch out for is sloped flooring or warped floors. Sloped flooring could actually mean damage to the foundation. I'll go ahead and throw up a couple pictures right here that show damage to the foundation of the house for one of the houses I was thinking of buying. You can see that the wood is splintered, and you can also see the floor is actually caving in, well, not caving in, but coming up a little bit, and that shows that there's probably damage to the foundation of the house. Now, repairing foundation is typically pretty expensive, but it does really depend on the type of repair that you're doing. For example, one of my properties had some foundational damage, and what the contractor did was put up additional column support in the basement of the property, and that fixed the issue. Now, the third red flag you should watch out for is electricals. So, what I do is that phone charger that you brought in earlier, you want to plug in your phone into the wall outlets and see if it starts charging your phone or not. If the outlet is not functioning, then obviously your phone won't be charging. And that's a simple way to test if the outlets are active or not. If the outlets are not active and they're not working, then that could be a sign of a deeper electrical issue at the house. The other thing you want to do is test all the lights. Turn on all the light switches and make sure all the light fixtures are working properly. Another thing you want to avoid is something called knob and tube electricals. I'll go ahead and throw up a quick picture of what knob and tube looks like right here. But these are types of electricals that are higher chance of fire happening. They're an older form of electricals that are considered a fire hazard, and so a lot of insurance companies may not insure knob and tube electricals. Now, if that being said, there's a lot of older homes that still have knob and tube and function just fine. Just realize that there's that added risk that you may want to avoid. The fourth red flag is having only one bathroom. Typically, especially if you're going to resell the house, it's really important to have at least 2 bathrooms at the house because you want to essentially maintain a 3-person to 1 bathroom ratio. And for me, because I rent out by the bedrooms, I want to have at least 2 bedrooms so that I can have up to 6 students. I want to maintain, again, 3-person per bathroom ratio. And so if you only have 1 bathroom, it's very hard to do that. You're basically limited to having only 3 tenants at the house if you only have a single bathroom. On the flip side of this, if you're flipping the house and there's a pretty sizable area to add the second bathroom in it, usually adding that second bathroom adds a lot of value to a house. When you go from 1 bathroom to 2 bathrooms, it usually adds a ton of value for sure to the value of the house in general. All right, finally, the 5th red flag to watch out for is the neighborhood. You want to make sure you don't invest in a neighborhood that has an HOA. They charge HOA fees, and they can also basically be another level of government that tells you what you can and can't do at your property. For example, they could say only 1 car is allowed to be parked in your driveway at any time. And they can make rules like this or whatever they want, right? They can even tell you how tall your grass should be. So you don't want to generally buy in a neighborhood with an HOA, especially if that HOA is super restrictive. Now, you could consider an HOA that's not as restrictive, but you never know later down the line if they elect new board members of that HOA, then the rules could change pretty rapidly. Also, because I want the tenant to feel safe in the neighborhood, I want to make sure that that neighborhood doesn't have a lot of trash all around, homeless people walking around. Generally, if I'm driving around or walking around late at night or my children are walking around, I want to make sure that my children feel safe and I feel safe. So other things you can look for are beater cars, cars that are not very well kept, or lawns that are not very well kept. Those are just general signs of a neighborhood that could potentially be less safe. And usually, high-quality tenants who make a high income do not want to stay in an unsafe neighborhood. Okay, now that we just went over the 5 red flags, I'm going to give you a bonus. We're going to go over the 5 green flags. These are things you want to see at a house. And typically, whenever I see these green flags at a house, it means a lot of cost savings for me after the purchase of the property, ultimately leading to much higher cash flow as a real estate investor. So the very first green flag that I recommend looking out for is neighborhood popularity. So what I'll do is go to reddit.com and look up the city that I'm thinking of investing in, and I'll look at the specific neighborhoods that come up very often as good neighborhoods to stay in. So I will actually type in best places to live in Sacramento, for instance, and I'll figure out, okay, where are the key neighborhoods that people like to stay in, because those are the neighborhoods that are going to appreciate the most, meaning the home value will go up a lot faster compared to neighborhoods that are not as popular. Now, these neighborhoods could be popular because they're close to a lot of restaurants, to the downtown area. There's a lot of things to do. Maybe they're close to hospitals or close to a lot of high income jobs. Whatever the case is, they're very popular. Those are the neighborhoods that I like to focus on when I'm buying my property. So the second key green flag for me is having the opportunity to create bedrooms at the property. So usually I look for properties that are higher square footage, usually 1,500 square foot or more. And this is where having the right strategy comes in. What I do is I rent by the bedroom because it makes way more cash flow than renting out the whole house to a single family. Usually renting out the whole house doesn't make any cash flow, especially nowadays. Basically, what we want to do is take a house and make it into a multi-unit property by basically renting out to multiple bedrooms. And that usually doubles or triples the amount of rental income you will make. Plus, it's also affordable for the people who are staying in those bedrooms. And so nowadays, with real estate investors not making any money on traditional real estate investing, renting by the room does very, very well during this time. And what I do is I essentially rent out by the room to college students and healthcare professionals, which are, really good, high quality tenants. Now, the third green flag you want to watch out for is making sure you have newer materials. Everything has a certain life expectancy. So a roof, for example, especially like an asphalt shingles roof, will only last 15 to 30 years depending on how the weather is in that specific city. Obviously, if you have hurricanes going on, your roof is not going to last as long. The second thing that you want to look for is the HVAC. Usually HVACs last from anywhere from 15 to 20 years. And so if you see a property with a newer HVAC unit, that's definitely a very big green flag. On the flip side, if the HVAC is 20 years old, it's probably about near the end of its life and needs a replacement. Okay, now let's talk about sewage lines. My very first house had a super old sewage line, and it was older than the 1980s. And before the 1980s, they used cast iron pipes. Nowadays, they use PVC for the sewage lines. The PVC material is a lot better compared to the cast iron because for the cast iron, it tends to rust and tree roots end up actually digging into the pipes and breaking the pipes altogether. And so what you might end up with is a broken sewage pipe that could cost you anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000 or even $12,000 depending on how much line you have to replace. I think I got quoted one time for a $15,000 sewage replacement before. So make sure your sewage pipe is in integrity, and the best way to do that is a sewage lateral line inspection, or you can check to see if they've replaced it already with the newer PVC pipes. Electricals, we kind of discussed that already. You really want to avoid the knob and tube electricals or older electricals. Sometimes you might have an electrical panel upgrade, like a higher amp electrical panel. And so the home inspector usually will be able to kind of tell you how old the electrical panel is. And then finally, we have plumbing. Now, the two newest materials most commonly used is something called PEX, PEX, or copper piping. Now, those are the two best materials to use for water lines. The ones that are not great to use are galvanized steel and lead piping. Lead itself is very unsafe and has been proven to be hazardous to your health, so you definitely don't want to have lead pipes if possible. And galvanized steel is generally really prone to leaking and developing leaks, water leaks, especially if you mix galvanized steel pipes with copper pipes. There's kind of this chemical reaction that actually makes the pipes leak faster. So you definitely don't want a combo of galvanized steel and copper. If you do change out all the galvanized steel, you want to change out the whole thing, not just a portion of it with copper piping or PEX. Next, we have the fourth green flag, which is appliances. Generally, I want to see all the appliances in working order. If one of the appliances is not working for whatever reason, it kind of makes me a little bit suspicious. Does the homeowner really care to take care of their house? I've bought some properties where the appliances were kind of broken, and it turns out more things were also broken and needed repair. So try to test out the appliances. It's a little bit of a red flag if you notice that one or two of them are not working. Now, the fifth green flag is getting a motivated seller. Making sure you get the right price can make a massive difference in the cash flow. Because if you buy the property at a discount, that means your mortgage payment is lower, which increases your overall cash flow on the property. Now, I have this story where when I bought my second out-of-state property, I went in there with my uncle, and we had the seller's agent show us the property, the seller's real estate agent. And we did this on purpose because as we walked through the house, we commented on all the bad things the house had. Obviously, these were legitimate problems with the house, and we would basically say it out loud and made sure that the seller's real estate agent heard us. And then we would say things like, I don't know, man, there's so many other properties out there, so much nicer properties compared to this one. And we would just say it loud enough so the realtor hears. Basically just expressing our displeasure and disinterest out loud. And then later we'll go to the seller's agent and say, look, there's a lot of issues with the property, but we're willing to buy it at this price point. Doing this particular strategy usually causes the seller's agent to chase after you rather than the other way around. However, you have to realize that some sellers are just so stubborn that they don't care what price you ask or you offer them. They want their very specific price point. In that case, you probably should just move on to another seller who's more motivated to sell that property. And one key rule that a realtor gave me a very long time ago that was very good ancient wisdom was that you should always be willing to walk away from a deal. And it doesn't mean you walk away, it means you're willing to walk away. So even showing that you're willing to walk away, a lot of times that causes the other party to say, wait, hold up, we want to make the sale happen, so what price point would work for you? Hopefully that was helpful. I know this was just the tip of the iceberg. As I said, obviously you also have to make sure you get the right strategy. You know how to find great high quality tenants. You have to make sure the numbers work to get cash flow. But getting started by doing a property tour is one of the best ways to just get started into real estate investing and get your feet wet. So I hope this video was super helpful for you guys. And if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with those who are really struggling with getting started in real estate investing. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on next week's video.